Hello and welcome back to In the Corner. I'm Cash. Today is May 22nd, episode 55. I know I didn't have an episode for like a week, and then I had a big episode yesterday. I'm doing this episode because I'm going to be out of town all weekend. Probably won't have one for another like 5 or 6 days. So we're just going to talk about the fights that are coming up this weekend. It really should not be long of an episode at all. I just want to start off the episode on a sad note, saying rest in peace to Georgia O'Connor. Uh, Young fighter. She was only 25, died of cancer today. You know, cancer is a terrible thing. It's very sad. So I just want to say rest in peace and condolences to all of our close ones. Yeah, it's just really sad. Just really, really sad stuff. Um, yeah. But moving on from that note, we can talk about the fights that we have going on this weekend, and there's some interesting ones. Maybe the most interesting to me is this GBM show. They're putting on their first, honestly, big event. They have a stadium show in Doncaster, headlined by Terri Harper defending her title. So we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about the Queensberry card with Josh Taylor, taking on Ekow Essuman in Scotland. We're going to start with that. We'll talk about Angelo Leo, his first title defense in Japan against Tomoki Kameda. We're going to talk about the other title fight tomorrow night in Mexico. And then we're going to talk about the top tier card and then move into some notes about the news that's been going on the last few days. There hasn't been a ton, but we'll just talk about whatever there is. And yeah, let's hop right into it. So probably the biggest event of the weekend still is the return of Josh Taylor, his debut at welterweight, his first fight under Frank Warren's Queensberry Promotions, and he's in with Ekow Essuman, which is actually a fight that I'm really excited for, entertainment-wise. Ekow Essuman is always in fun fights, and I've been waiting for him to get a big opportunity on like a world level, and he's finally getting that against a huge name in Josh Taylor, former undisputed champion. This is a fight that I do see Josh Taylor winning, however. I was thinking about it, and Josh Taylor's very much a once-a-year type fighter. If you look at his last few fights, had the loss to Jack Catterall in 2024, 2023 lost to Teofimo, 2022 was the victory over Jack Catterall, but a lot of people think that he did not win that fight. In fact, most do. So his last true win was that over Jose Ramirez. So it's been a while since we've really seen him put on a good performance, and he's going to need one of those on Saturday. Even though I think that he's the favorite, even though I think that he wins this fight, he's still been out of the ring for a year. He's still the probably going to be the smaller guy, the guy who's not as comfortable in this new weight class, and he's going to need to show I've still got it. He hasn't put in a good performance in 4 years. So now is really the time to show it. It's only going to be 10 rounds, which I think is a little bit interesting. I'm surprised it's not 12, but oh well, maybe they wanted to just get him out there in a 10-rounder before they jump back up to 12. Look, if he wins this fight, I think that it's definitely in the interest of both Matchroom and Queensberry to do a trilogy fight between Taylor and Catterall. I don't know if we necessarily need that, but I wouldn't mind it if we did. They are one apiece. I feel like that story is closed, but, I'm fine with revisiting it. It would be a fight that works for both right now. They have a lot of hate there and a great story, so I would not mind opening it back up. But yeah, I think that Josh Taylor does have more experience. I do think he's the overall better fighter. We've seen Ekow Essuman, lose to lesser opponents before. I think that both Jack Catterall and Teofimo Lopez beat Ekow Essuman, and I think Josh Taylor should be able to get the win. I'd be surprised if he doesn't, so I'm going to pick him to win, probably by decision, in a very, very fun fight. I think that Essuman is just always so much fun to watch, and I really am happy that he's getting his opportunity. Once he wins this fight, I'd like to see him, stay on that level, or at least get a British title fight. Like him versus Conor Walker would just be absolute carnage, and I'd love to see that. So I'm looking forward to this fight. I say Josh Taylor wins it. On the undercard, you have the return of Moses Atauma. I'm very excited to see that. I feel like he really needs to get more active. He still had 4 fights last year, but I think he could have had more, because when you look at how many rounds he actually fought last year in those 4 appearances, he only fought 6 rounds, and some of them were not against the best opponents. Dempsey McKean was a good opponent. The rest of them, not necessarily. He's in with Mike Balogan, who is 21-1. I'm not too familiar with Balogan. Decent record. He has 16 knockouts in his 21 wins, and again, his only loss comes to Murat Gassiev, but I don't really see a decent win on here, realistically. I think that Atauma should win this fight, not too difficulty, not with too much difficulty, I should say. I think that he is just unbelievable. I think he's such a talent. I think he's such a powerhouse, and I think that he wins this one within three. That's what you can say with every Moses fight. You don't always want to restrict it to the first round or maybe even the second, but I think within 3 he gets him out of there. And look, I want to see Moses Tama back out in the summer. Get him on the Usyk Dubois card. Put him in Wembley Stadium. Get him a good fight there. Have him fight for the British title. We already know, look, he's not going to go and jump up to the world level. He's not going to try and become the world's fastest heavyweight champion. So if we're not doing that, there's no need to rush him, but there's also no need to hold him back. I want to see him in meaningful fights. You could do Dave Allen with him. I don't think that's good matchmaking for Dave Allen, but he's off a good win. You could get him in with the British title with a guy like Adelaide or TKV. You could get him in with Clark. There's so many guys you could throw him in with. That are actually interesting fights, at least in terms of name value and competitiveness. So I don't really know, but I say Moses takes this one pretty easily. Also on the card, you have Nathaniel Collins versus Lee McGregor, which is a fantastic featherweight fight. They're fighting for the WBC silver title, so winner will have a good ranking in the division, run by Stephen Fulton, at least for the WBC. I really, really like this fight. This one's hard to call. I may have to sit on the fence in this one. I think Lee McGregor is coming off a really great win over Isaac Lowe, but also Nathaniel Collins has been on a good run. I do see here that he had a fight with Darwin Martinez in February, which I was not aware of. I didn't know that happened. He's been out of the ring since last May. Hasn't fought since May 11th when he had his fight with Francesco Grandelli for the EBU silver title. That's not on the line. I'm guessing he may have been stripped. He had the win over Zach Miller, of course, as well. So he's had plenty of good wins. But Lee McGregor is also the hometown guy, so that's something that could come into favor for him should it go to the scorecards. He's coming off a few good wins now. He obviously did have the loss to Eric Robles. I don't know. This one's hard to say. I think that overall we've seen obviously a more consistency from Nathaniel Collins, but I think that Lee McGregor has been on a better run maybe just in terms of that win over Lowe and his activity. I'm going to sit on the fence on this one, but it should be a really interesting fight, really good one. I don't know. I don't want to sit in the corner of Collins because I think that I'm kind of leaning towards him, but on the other hand, I don't want to doubt Lee McGregor because I doubted him with the Isaac Lowe fight. I wasn't sure if he was going to win it, but looking at that, I was like, oh my gosh, how could I not think he would have won that fight? So we'll see what happens, but that's a really great fight. And then obviously also on the card, you have Alois Jr. returning. He's going to challenge David Jamieson for the vacant Commonwealth title that was just announced. So that makes this fight a lot more interesting. I expect Alois to win this one, and should he win it, there's a lot of good fights for him at cruiserweight. Again, I think that John Hedges is a good opponent for him. I could also see him going up and fighting Vidal Riley for the British title. He's going to be Commonwealth champion. Maybe you unify those. That's a great fight. That's one I would favor Vidal in, but it's a great fight. So really good, solid 4-5 main card that they put together for this show. You got some good fighters on the undercard. You're going to have Aston Brown versus Reese Porter for the Scottish area middleweight championship. They're both undefeated, so that should be a competitive fight. Luke McCormack returns as well. He's a lot of fun. And then you got a lot of pro debuts. I think in total there's let me see here. I could be wrong. I think that there's about 5 pro debuts on this card, which is just ridiculous. I'm guessing it's a lot of Scottish homegrown talent, but I'm excited for it. It should be a fun night. What should also be a fun night is GBM's first stadium show headlined by Terri Harper versus Natalie Zimmerman for the WBO Lightweight Championship of the World in Doncaster, England. I'm excited for that. I don't know too much about Zimmerman. She is undefeated at 13-0. I think that Terri Harper's coming off a really solid win over Rhiannon Dixon, one that I was not expecting her to win that fight, and she did. So I'm going to sit in the corner of Terri Harper on this one. I think that she is also the hometown favorite, so should the fight go to the scorecards, which it probably will, she'll have some favor there. She's a really good champion. I am a little bit curious, how much does she really have left? Even though she's coming off a great win, it was just the loss to Sandy Ryan was really, really damaging, I thought. And she's not the most, the youngest of the bunch. Actually, she's 28. I thought she was older than that just because, she's been around for a minute. But, I don't know. I don't think that she's in her prime like she just said she was. We'll see. But I think that Terri Harper wins this fight, and then hopefully we get a bigger fight with her. I don't know if she beats the other two champions, though, and Beatrice Ferreira and Caroline Dubois. Co-main event is going to be Maxie Hughes returning after his great win over Gary Coley. He's with Archie Sharp, a fantastic fight. Sharp is obviously coming off his first loss and only loss to Ryan Garner. This is a terrific fight. I'm going Maxie Hughes on this one. I know it's close. I don't want to doubt Sharp at all. I just think that Maxie Hughes has been really impressive as of recent. He had the win over Gary Coley. He had a stoppage before that. Obviously, the loss to William Zepeda. The George Kambosos fight, he was very competitive in. A lot of people thought he won that. Some great wins before that. I don't want to doubt this guy. I'm fully in his corner. I want to see him get a decent fight, and I say Maxie Hughes wins this one. It's for the WBC Silver Championship at lightweight, so he's honestly in a position where he could get a world title eliminator, which is just nuts. But yeah, you got Reese Mold versus Louis Sylvester. That's a great fight. James Flynn, who obviously beat Campbell Hatton twice, he returns against Haitham Lemos for 10 rounds. You've also got Ellie Helwo versus Steve I. Levy, which is a 10-rounder. And then a good amount of interesting prospects on this card as well that GBM has. Taz Nadeem, Ed Hardy. It should just be a really fun fight card. I'm expecting them to have a decent amount of ticket sales. I am curious, are they going to have the entire stadium open? Or is it just going to be one of those things where they've only got like 2 or 3 of the 4 stands out there, the rest are empty, so it looks more packed in, and they can, put the ring more central to just those few. I do know they sold about 8,000 or 9,000 tickets was the last I heard. I don't know if it's gone up more during fight week. But so they've done a decent bit. The stadium only holds 15,000, and they've already surpassed half of that. But I do think that it won't look great if they've got, say, even 10,000 out of 15,000 scattered across the stadium. It's going to look like there's a lot of empty slots in there, and it may be better to just do a couple of the stands and consolidate all those tickets. So we'll see what it looks like, but I think it's going to be a really decent card. And yeah, we'll just see what goes down on Friday night. On Saturday morning, I guess, you have Angelo Leo returning, defending his IBF featherweight title against Tomoki Kameda in a fight that I think that he should win. Listen, Leo's been on a really good run. This fight with Luis Alberto Lopez was incredible, and he had an incredible knockout of the year contender to finish that off. Tomoki Kameda, I'm not too familiar with, but he has 4 losses on his record versus Leo's only loss to Stephen Fulton. I think this is one that Leo should win, and he is in hostile territory. He is overseas in Japan, but I think this is his fight to win, to really impress, and to get big fights after this. There's obviously a mandatory defense. It's not a bad one, but I want to see him get into some real big fights after this and some unifications. I know he wants the Naoya Inoue fight once he moves up. I think the Nick Ball fight is tremendous. I think the Rafael Espinoza fight is very possible. And the Stephen Fulton rematch is another one I'm sure he would love to get a shot at. And I think that Angelo Leo really is real about winning those big fights, and I think that he's chasing them. Also in the co-main event, you have Pedro Tataran rematching Jinjiro Shigeoka for the IBF minimum weight championship. Obviously, Tataran stopped Shigeoka in an upset last year. As for how this one goes, I'm not really too sure. That was Shigeoka's first loss, so maybe he's able to kind of come back from that. But as you saw the other Shigeoka brother, he was not able to get his get back against Melvin Jerusalem. He also lost his minimum weight title. So I don't know. Maybe it's just not a good run for the Shigeoka brothers, or he surprises and beats Pedro Tataran. I'm not really too sure. I'm not going to call a prediction. I'm just going to see what happens. I do know that the fight is on ProBox TV. It'll only be on the app, not on YouTube, which is interesting that they're starting to move in that direction of not, putting everything out there for free, which I think is probably a good idea for their business. Obviously, I would love to see everything on YouTube for free just because it's easier to watch that way. But I also understand that, you have to make money somehow, and at some point they're going to have to start pushing towards a subscription. It's still free. The app is still free. It's just not on YouTube. I do think that they're broadcasting the whole card, which is interesting. I'm not really too interested in a lot of the other card. There's 5 other fights on here. All 8 rounds or less, it seems. So I don't know how much of that I'll watch. Probably I won't, but I will watch the main and co-main event as I am excited to see what goes down there in Japan. On Friday night, we have got an interesting rematch. Last December, Wilibaldo Garcia and Rene Calixto clashed for the vacant IBF Super Flyweight Championship. It was a draw. I didn't see the fight, but I heard it was great. I'm going to watch this one. And they rematch now for that same title. Garcia is 22-5-2 versus Calixto, who is 23-0-1. Again, I don't really want to call a prediction. I haven't seen either of these guys fight before, but I did hear that the first fight was great. I don't know if there was a robbery or anything, but it seems like everyone was pretty okay with it being a draw. So yeah, I'm glad they're running it back. And look, the winner of this, very big implications for who fights Bam Rodriguez, for who fights Puma Martinez. 115 is a really interesting division of the lower ones, and winner of this can get themselves into a big fight. It remains to be seen who wins this one, but that'll be tomorrow night in Zacatecas, Mexico. And yeah, we'll just have to see which direction this one goes. And yeah, I'm excited because 115, like I said, is a really interesting division. Okay, and then the last show of the weekend will be on Sunday. There's not too much going on this weekend, no MMA or anything. It's just boxing. We're going to see the return of Top Tier at York Hall again, headlined by James Osborne versus Liam Forrest. It's an okay fight there. I'm really not too interested in this card at all, just because it was supposed to be a lot better. Konstantin Urso was supposed to headline. He is the Commonwealth champion at, I want to say, welterweight. I could be wrong on that one, but I think he's around that. And, should he have won that, he would have gotten himself into a big fight, possibly with Kona Walker. And he got injured, so he's now off the card, which sucks. And then they also had a heavyweight knockout tournament, which means that, 4 guys fight at the beginning of the night, and then the winners will meet later on. And that was meant to be on this card, and that fell through as well. So, I don't know. This card just had a lot of bad changes, and now it's just it's just kind of reminds me of other top tier shows where it's just a ton of okay prospects against journeyman. I don't know. I'm not really too excited for it, but maybe it's some okay action. We'll see. Kevin Revell returns. He's on all their shows. He's obviously 6-4-1, so he's not the best fighter out there. So we'll see if he gets a win. He's in with Morgan Selamuthu, who's 4-1. You have Ross Driscoll, who's one of their better prospects that they've been pushing. Jermaine DeLewayo, who is the nephew of Derek Chisora, of course. And then you also have Nina Hughes on this card, which is so random to me. She's coming off her 2 back-to-back losses to Shernika Johnson after holding a world title at bantamweight. She's now in a 6-rounder against Nicoline Achieng, who is 4-11. So random. I don't even think that Nina Hughes is British. I could be talking out of my ass there. Okay, she is British. I don't know why I thought she wasn't, but it's just so weird that she's on this card. I don't know, but it's cool they have a former world champion on there. Let's see if it's any decent, this event, but I don't know. I don't want to give my hopes up. That's all the events we have coming up this weekend. Let's move into some news. So we got some announcements this morning for the Katie Taylor Amanda Serrano 3 undercard. So Savannah Marshall versus Shadeja Green has now been added to the card. That will be a unified super middleweight championship. I think it's the IBF and the WBO titles. I could be wrong. There could be more, but I think it's at least those 2. Marshall was undisputed but hasn't fought in boxing in 2 years, so a lot of her titles have since been stripped. Green is the WBO champion, of course. That's a really, really good fight. People should not be underestimating Shadeja Green. I think she's really solid. She is a world champion, but I do think that Marshall wins this fight. I think Savannah Marshall is on another level, a different pedigree. She's one of the best women's fighters right now. The last few years she's been, and Shadeja Green is solid, but she did not look her best against Franchon Cruz-Dezurn. She lost that fight, and obviously Cruz-Dezurn lost to Savannah Marshall. I know boxing math doesn't work, but it is still true, and I still see Savannah Marshall winning that fight, but it's one that I'm really happy MVP made between 2 of their fighters. Chantel Cameron is also returning, defending her WBC interim title at 140 against Jessica Kamara, who is the same opponent of Caroline Dubois in that January card where they had 2 rounds where Dubois was easily beating her, and then a cut, I think, on Kamara stopped the fight. It was something to that effect, and it just became a draw. Not a no contest, which is weird. It was a draw, but we all saw the way that fight was going. She was getting beat up by Caroline Dubois, and I think that the same will happen with Cameron. I don't really know why she's getting another title shot. I don't. Maybe it's because she did not lose that last title shot, and she feels like she still deserves it and just moved up a weight class. There's not really a lot of people for Chantel Cameron to fight that are not named Katie Taylor, so I think it's an okay fight. But it's one that, again, I think that Chantel Cameron wins. And they also have Ramla Ali returning against Lila Furtado. This is an 8-rounder, so not necessarily jumping right back into world title fights. But, I'm excited, man. This is a really, really incredible card. They're going to have 6 world title fights overall, 5 of which are going to be undisputed, 2 of which are going to be 5 of which are going to be unified championships, 2 of which are going to be undisputed championships. And then you also have some really great fighters in the undercard as well. MSG on July 11th, it's going to be, I know they're throwing around this word a lot, but I really do think it's going to be a historic card. I can't wait. Another announcement we got was for a no-limit card on June 25th. Liam Paro is finally returning against Jonathan Navarro. And then Liam Wilson is also on that card against Ayrton Jimenez. Again, this is not the best opponents for either of them. I think that Navarro is an okay opponent, especially for a comeback. I think that's not bad. I think it's a fight that Paro certainly wins. I'm not really too familiar with Jimenez at all, but I think that's, again, another fight that I see Wilson winning. I think the Liams win this night. I also know that Callum Peters will be on the card. So, some solid. They're putting together a solid show. It will not be a pay-per-view, which, it doesn't really affect us in the U.S. because we can't even watch the no-limit cards. But obviously in Australia, they have a lot of pay-per-view events. And most of the no-limit cards, at least the big ones, I feel, are pay-per-views. This one's not. But I think it's a good doubleheader. Should either of these guys win this, I want to see them in big fights. They were talking about being able to get O'Shaquie Foster down there to fight Liam Wilson. I don't think that's a fight that Liam Wilson really wants. Liam Paro obviously wants to get back into the world title fights. I think that's possible. I think that George Kambosos is going to lose to Richardson Hitchens, and I'd love to see those two fight then. I don't know if Liam Paro was dropped by Matchroom because he's now fighting on a no-limit card, which is really interesting. It is a little bit weird. There's no mention of Matchroom in this fight. They haven't mentioned anything about it, so I think it's safe to assume that he's no longer with them after his loss, which is a little bit messed up, but it's whatever. But he's now in no limit, which is maybe a better fit. We'll see. Project Caballel apparently turned down the Klitschko fight. Obviously, Klitschko is being talked about to return to the ring to fight Tyson Fury or whoever for the WBC heavyweight title. Caballel sits as the WBC interim champion and apparently was offered this Klitschko fight, and he said, no, I'm not doing that. I want to, have like a real legacy as world champion. I don't want to fight, somebody who's been out of the game for a long time. And I think that's really a lot of class from him to say, I'm turning down that big money fight, the biggest fight, what would be the biggest fight of my career, because I don't want to destroy a legend the same way that Jake Paul did with Mike Tyson, or he didn't destroy the legend, but you know what I mean. The same way that Mario Barrios is maybe about to do with Manny Pacquiao. He wants to be legit. He wants to fight the real guys. He doesn't want to fight a 48-year-old former champion. And I think that's a great decision from him. I do. We're hearing that it could be Lawrence Okolie. We know his next fight will be in Germany, a homecoming, defending his title. I love the Lawrence Okolie fight. Okolie is number one with the WBC. That's a competitive fight. That's a fight that I favor Caballel in. And should Okolie take that one, which I think he could, I'd love to see that in Germany. I'm not sure who would promote it. Maybe it'd be Queensberry. Those guys are both somewhat with him, with Frank. So we'll see who they decide to give it to. But I do want to see Caballel in a big fight next, and hopefully one that he's the A-side in, because I feel like we haven't seen that from him. TGB Promotions, who obviously are a big part of PBC, have requested with the Nevada State Athletic Commission for the August 16th date at the T-Mobile Arena for Tank vs. Roach 2. They didn't say that's what it was, but we all know that's why it is. And then also a date at September 20th. I think it was the MGM Grand Garden Arena, whatever it's called. Just a week after Canelo vs. Crawford. I'm not sure if they're going to keep that date. I don't know if that's a pay-per-view or not. It could be another just like non-pay-per-view, which I think is a good idea. Let's say Canelo Crawford ends up in Vegas, which there's a very real chance of that happening. I don't think that you want to put two pay-per-views 1 week apart in the same city. I know it's Vegas, but still, I don't think you want to put two pay-per-views a week apart anyways. So I don't know what that date is going to be. But you know what? I want to see PBC put on more events. I cannot wait to see Tank vs. Roach. The rematch is going to be great, and it looks like August 16th is the date that's going to be happening. No idea who'd be fighting on the September card. I really don't. That could be a David Benavidez return. In that case, it would be pay-per-view. I don't know if that'd be against Callum Smith or someone like that. But Anthony Yarr, maybe. I have no idea. It remains to be seen. But, moving on from that, Matchroom have signed Dave Allen. Obviously, after his big Johnny Fisher win, we knew that Matchroom was probably going to move on him, and I think they said that they were planning on working with him. They've now officially signed him again. He says he wants to move on to British, European, Commonwealth titles, which it makes sense. He said he's not a world title guy. He knows he's not going to fight for a world title, but those fights are realistic for him. And we were talking about at the beginning of the episode, guys like Adelaide and TKV and Clark and even Moses Ataumanai, those are the kind of guys he's going to be in the mix with for this British heavyweight title. I don't know if he beats any of those guys. He's already lost to Fraser Clark, and he may have lost the other ones. And I just don't remember. But he's yeah. Well, it's interesting to see what they'll do with him and how far he can go after this big win over Johnny Fisher. I'm curious if it was just a good win. Johnny Fisher wasn't good enough on either night, and Dave Allen just better than him, or if Dave Allen's really back and really has, some new pep to his step. Top Rank have signed Yuri Cedeno, who's obviously a really good prospect. They said he's going to be back on the June 7th Keyshawn De Los Santos card, so that's exciting. Good signing from them. I like to see them sign more guys. I do think it's interesting that Top Rank is very focused on signing prospects, as is like people like Golden Boy, as opposed to signing fighters later on in their careers. I think it's rare we see them do that. They have a lot of like homegrown talent they try and do and really build these guys as top rank fighters, and then who spend their whole careers with them until of course they get egos or whatever, and then they move away from top rank. So, but you know what? I like the investment in the young guys because that's very important. Excuse me. UFC Shanghai has been confirmed for August 23rd. We talked last episode about Zhang Mingyang versus Johnny Walker supposedly being the main event for that. So that's all good and exciting. They are going to sacrifice Johnny Walker there. Zhang is going to absolutely steamroll him. It's not going to be good. But yeah, I'm excited to see that one. Should that be the fight that headlines this card in China? And then we also know about another UFC main event. I think this is meant to be the main event for Vegas 109 on August 9th. Yasmin Lucindo versus Angela Hill has been reported to be there. And I think it's a pretty decent fight. I don't know if that's good for a main event, but I'm okay with that being on an Apex card. I think it's 8 versus 12 at strawweight, so not a bad fight. Yasmin Lucindo has looked very interesting recently, as has Hill. They've both been impressive. So I'd like to see that fight. Again, I don't know if that needs to be a main event, but the UFC, they like giving the women the main events for the Apex fight nights. And then lastly, this may not interest everyone, but apparently Dean the Great and Slim are going back and forth talking about a fight. There's about a 30 to 40 pound weight difference between the two. Obviously, these guys are both on Misfits, both of whom seem to have kind of left Misfits recently for whatever reason. Excuse me. I don't know if the plan is Misfits says they want to make the fight. They're posting about it. Obviously, there's some beef over, Dean obviously is some beef with Adam Sala, who is like Slim's best friend, and also is a lot closer to Dean's weight. They got into it, and Slim, they had some words on Twitter, and they're talking about wanting to do a catch weight fight. I don't know what kind of catch weight you would do. There's no way Slim can get down to like below 160. I think he's so tall. And Dean, I don't know how high he can get up. Maybe like 150 I could see, but they're still going to have a bit of a difference there. I don't think we need to make this fight, but heck, I'd watch it. It'd be pretty funny and pretty crazy to see two guys at so much different weights come together. So yeah, we'll see what goes on this weekend. It should be a pretty fun fight weekend. I think that we're going to see some cool stuff this weekend. I'm really excited for this GBM show and how it looks in the stadium. They have another one in Ireland in June with Kieran Malloy headlining. And then you've also got the Josh Taylor show in Scotland, which is going to be crazy. The atmosphere is going to be electric, and that Ekow Essuman fight just has war written all over it. A lot of other fun stuff. I'm excited for the Angelo Leo stuff. And yeah, thank you so much for listening. Like I said, probably won't have another episode till like Tuesday or Wednesday. We'll see. But yeah, thank you for listening, and peace out. Enjoy the fights this weekend.